Federal Drive is presented by GEHA, Government Employees Health Association, proudly providing health and dental benefits to federal employees and their families. Visit GEHA.com.
Over the past year, there's been a major uptick in the government's use of the False Claims Act to take companies to task for cybersecurity violations. The Trump administration has announced 6 separate False Claims Act settlements, and enforcement has been especially aggressive for companies who do business with the Defense Department. Sara McLean is a former assistant director of the fraud section in the Justice Department's commercial litigation branch. She talked with Federal News Network's Jason Miller about the enforcement trend.
There was in May 2021 an executive order directing basically all government agencies to get their arms around cybersecurity, do what they could on this issue. At the Justice Department, there was that launched a 360 review of cyber matters. And all sorts of different efforts within the Justice Department. But one of them was that using the False Claims Act in this way. The False Claims Act is, I don't know if your listeners know, it requires, it provides for treble damages and penalties for knowing false claims to the government. So it can be used and has been used for a lot of different requirements that come along with government funding. And so, I mean, in the Civil War, that was sawdust, instead of flour, lame mules. This was a new version of that sort of construct. That when somebody is providing the government something that is supposed to have cybersecurity and doesn't have what it should have, the False Claims Act can be used in this way. And really, I think the motivation was largely to improve cybersecurity, and also to just generally in the country to protect sensitive information, personal information, national security information, to ensure, a level playing field so that you didn't have some folks who were meeting the requirements and others who were not, to ensure that incidents were being reported to the extent the False Claims Act could be used around that particular issue, because the thought was that that would enable the government to respond to cybersecurity, problems, and that still is really the impetus now behind the more recent enforcement in the last few months.
When we talk about cybersecurity and False Claims Act, it's mostly around contracting, the use of, for instance, hey, NIST 853 is required, FISMA is required. Now we're getting into cybersecurity maturity model certification over at DoD. Those are the types of things you all were looking at. Hey, did they say they met this requirement? We have evidence, or we were able to prove that they didn't actually meet it, and that's the connection. Maybe just go one step further to give us what you all were generally looking at, and was it a lot of that kind of provisions in contracting, but also the regulations and laws set up by Congress?
Yeah, exactly that. Provisions in contracting, regulations and laws set up by Congress. And a lot of the matters that have been announced, and by the way, about half of the resolutions that have been announced have been since January in the current administration, about and half before then. So it's been a very significant push recently. The matters that have been announced, a lot of them involve Department of Defense cybersecurity requirements, which are contractual, and they're regulatory. Regulations are incorporated into contracts that are signed. But the biggest other category is sensitive personal information, and again, oftentimes that's also contractual requirements. But agencies have been putting out more and more robust. More and more agencies, I guess, have been putting out more and more robust cybersecurity requirements, and all of those, can be the basis for one of these suits. But it's been what's been announced publicly has been a lot of DoD cases, and then a lot of other sort of odds and ends type contract cases where there was some sort of cybersecurity commitment that a qui tam relator, we can talk about that a little if you want, or the government alleged was knowingly not met.
This also has been a really big impetus to get contractors to come forward and kind of raise their hand to say, hey, we think we have a mistake. We want to mea culpa, my second Latin phrase of the day, and that maybe will lessen the penalties. Have you started to see that too, or more companies are saying, "Hey, we messed up and we're sorry," versus trying to fight the no, we didn't do anything wrong, all is well, go away, hopefully you'll stop pursuing us?
Yes, definitely a lot of that. And there is DOJ has policies of giving credit in False Claims Act settlements for self-disclosure, cooperation, and remediation, and that is definitely something that is that's available and that companies have been definitely taken advantage of in this space. And it's been, highly touted in the press releases that DOJ has put out. That this is available because it's I think DOJ understands that there's more focus on cybersecurity than there used to be, and so there are companies that maybe didn't attend to this as much as they now wish they had in the past, who discover that they've got some kind of a problem and want to fix it and fix it going forward, but then also figure out how do I make it right and in the past, and how do I avoid a whistleblower coming forward, a would-be whistleblower coming forward and filing one of these quittams, throw around our Latin language. That is a way that private citizens can file a complaint under the False Claims Act and get up to 30% of the government recovery if there is one, and the attorney's fees paid for their private sector counsel. So it's a huge, incentive for folks to come forward, and you don't actually have to have a lot of information in order to qualify for the reward. But in the cyberspace, what we have seen is a lot of people who do have a lot of information coming forward, and cybersecurity professionals within companies in particular who come forward and say, hey, I said that the company shouldn't do this, and nobody listened to me and it happened anyway, and file one of these suits. So I think a lot of companies have decided that, so there's a lot that goes into the consideration, but that it would be worthwhile to come forward on their own and get the credit that's available.
Let's talk a little bit about the work. I mean, how big is the civil cyber fraud unit? How many people focus on it? Or give me some of the inside of what happens in the Justice Department. Someone help me understand what you guys do every day, for lack of a better word.
Right. Not me, guys. What my former colleagues do. But
yes. What you used to do, right?
What I used to do, yes. So there's no separate cyber fraud unit in the Justice Department. There is a section of the Justice Department, the civil fraud section, that is sort of the mothership for False Claims Act cases. And that's about 130 lawyers or so right now. They work with the U.S. attorney's offices, and there are U.S. attorney's offices everywhere in the country in every judicial district. And in every one of those offices, there are people who do this affirmative civil litigation, False Claims Act work, basically. And so the group in Washington that I was with is sort of the mothership for the effort, teams up with partners at the U.S. attorney's offices, and also teams up with the agencies, really critically. And there's a ton of cyber expertise, of course, in the government. As you know, you have people on your program, who do this day in, day out. Those people are available to the Justice Department to do these cases. And those are essentially the clients of the Justice Department in doing these cases and are behind the scenes guiding it. So there's, certainly the DOJ lawyers who are generalists had to learn the area, but had a ton of resources to draw on.
That's Sara McLean, a former assistant director of the fraud section in the Justice Department's commercial litigation branch. To watch her full conversation with Jason Miller, check out Federal News Network's Risk and Compliance Exchange at federalnewsnetwork.com.